Hi partakers, my name is Amanda and I'm very happily here to take you through the show today. Our show is called Your Take, where we basically just discuss about food and how it can help us improve our health but also our qualities of life. If I did not mention this, I am also a nutritionist, so be sure that you're in great hands to guide you, through this journey. So today in our show, we're going to be having different segments. The first one that's going to start us off, which we're getting into right now, is going to be our eggplant. So what is eggplant useful for? Is it important? Should we add it to our diets? Yes, yes, yes. It's very important because it has different nutrients, which we are going to get into. But let's first go into a little bit of history or a little bit of facts about eggplants. According to research, it actually originated from Asia. And then eggplants have different names. Down here where I hail from, this is Uganda. We call it, in our local dialects, most of our local dialects anyway, we call it biringanya. But for example, in the UK, the British people call it, aubergine. In the US, American people call it eggplant. In South Asia, they call it brinjal. So it has various names in different parts of the world. Now, where can we use eggplant and what are the nutrients that it actually offers us? It's full of fiber, so then you're able to deal with constipation, deal with cutting out or lowering your cholesterol, deal with trying to balance out your sugar in your body system, especially for diabetics. So it's important in that sense. Then we also have another nutrient in it called folate. Now folate is very helpful. It's sort of an equivalent to iron and very helpful when we're trying to make sure we have enough blood volume and enough blood being formed in our body systems. So eggplant is another go-to food. Then another very interesting and flagship nutrient or chemical that I'll talk about when it comes to eggplant is an antioxidant that it has called nasunin. So this nasunin really helps us with making sure that our memory is better, our brains are actually getting quicker, more alert, and being protected. The thing with having stress that we all go through this life is your brains can actually be affected by that stress. So the brain injury that might be caused from that is what eggplants help to protect us from. So that is why we should actually add eggplants into our diet. Which foods can we use eggplant to make? We can use it to make, for those that are strong-hearted and will take anything as long as it's for health, you can actually make smoothies from eggplant, mix it up with other different fruits or vegetables and have your smoothie. But it's very nice also with sauces. So if you're making sauces, say you're making beef or you're making even groundnut sauce, a simple way to integrate vegetables in there would be chop up your aubergine or eggplant and then add it into your sauces. Then you can also use it as a filling, as part of a filling. Say you're making vegetable samosas or you're making pies. This would make a very great part of that filling. So that's about it for our eggplant. How about we go into our next segment, which is the discussion room. So in the discussion room today, we are basically talking about, the lessons we have learned from what has been asked on our Facebook page. If you have not gone down there yet, if you're not a part of that family yet, please head down there right now because you're lagging behind. The name is Amanda Twebaze Nutritionist for the Facebook page. So let's head into our discussion room. Our first question today comes in from Prosi, and she was asking, does nutrition affect sleep? So nutrition is definitely food, and here we're looking at good food because that's what we want and we are aiming for. But if you want to have good sleep, then you definitely have to be having good nutrition. It's sort of an equilibrium reaction in that one equals the other. So if you have good sleep, then definitely you're going to be able to digest your food better because your body is well rested, so that when it needs to start working, it actually does. So if you have good sleep, then you'll definitely have good nutrition. And if you have good nutrition, it also vice versa helps you to make sure that you have better sleep. So they work hand in hand. You have to make sure that you are keeping those two as a priority, in other words. So I hope that helps you, Prosi. Let's head on to our second question now, which is coming in from, who is it coming from? From Jocelyn. So Jocelyn is saying she has a daughter that is very picky with food, and that is disturbing her a bit because she's not eating food, she has refused to take milk, and she loves chips a lot. So what can she do? She's asking, even if she has to force food down her throat, she will, as long as we tell her what to eat. So here are a few lessons that we can learn from Jocelyn's question. When it comes to feeding and the little ones, we need to make sure that we are not, yes, sometimes you have to be, you know, tough mom and have tough love, or tough dad and have tough love, or tough nanny, whoever is taking care of the kids, and, you know, force them to eat in order to eat. But if you do it consistently over a period or long period of time, you might make the child actually start to hate the food that you are serving them, or even the way you cook your food, because they'll seem to attach your forceful nature to the foods that you're eating. Even way later in adulthood, they'll have issues with eating that food. I've asked so many people about this, and it has been a problem for them later in adulthood. Yes, so make sure you're not being so forceful. Let the force, you know, be tactful. In other words, you could probably attach it to having diverse foods instead of just shouting at them as they eat. Yes, so have diverse foods, because that really helps with children. Children are very explorative. If you're the type that has a menu that stays on week after week after week for the next 6 months, that may not be helpful for your children, because the taste is starting to become a little boring. They are the type that are still trying to understand the different tastes of food that we have in the world, so you need to be giving them that, so they feel like they are choosing what they actually want. So make sure that you have, say today you have meat, tomorrow have fish, the other day you have peas, you know, the other day have rice, the other day have yams. Give them different things. In other words, make it a point to try out shopping and helping them explore the different food tastes that are available in our country. Okay, so that's it, Jocelyn. Let's go into our third question, which is coming in from Ahabwe Di Costa. Ahabwe Di Costa is asking, is blood donation healthy to our bodies? Yes, it's healthy if you do it in the right way. We talked about this on the Facebook page. For if you want to know the answers and you know what we discussed about, please go down there. But what we should note also for this question is, it's very, very important for us to actually think about pre-care before you donate, and also post-care after you donate, because pre-care involves you preparing yourself to actually have enough blood to donate. That's why they will always check how much blood you actually have, what's the quality of your blood, are you actually sick, do you have underlying diseases, because they need for you to actually do what? To be able to donate enough without also crippling your own health. And then we go on to post-care. So for post-care, we are making sure that you know, you are replenishing what has been lost. Definitely with blood donation, you're losing your blood to someone else, but for a good cause. So it's very noble, but you have to make sure that you are replacing what has been lost, because blood is very important. And if you're the type that is a consistent or constant donator, then definitely you're going back into preparation mode for the next time you'll donate. So yes, it's very awesome that you're donating, but don't forget yourself as well. Don't forget that you need to be healthy for you, because you have so many other things going on. You might be a donator, but you're also going to be a father to someone, you're also going to be a mother to someone, and you need to be healthy to be able to do that. So yes, that's it. Think about the pre-care and also the post-care of blood donation. Then let's head into our fourth question, which is coming in from someone called Hosie. And Hosie was saying she has a discoloration on her mouth. The doctors say she lacks zinc. And she was wondering, you know, what can she do about that? So I'm very happy that you actually got a diagnosis. Remember, on this show we said it's very important to actually know what's going on with your body system. So go, if you have issues or any challenges you're facing health-wise, please head down and get a diagnosis, because it helps even for further help from other specialists. Yes, so she says they said she has a zinc deficiency, and therefore that means she needs to be looking out more for sources of zinc and also other cofactors that actually help her absorb zinc much better. Anyway, so looking at zinc, let's have it at the back of our minds. We've mentioned the foods that we'll need down on the Facebook page, but let's have it at the back of our minds that seafood, nuts and seeds are awesome and very, very rich source of zinc. So when you're looking out for zinc any other time, have it at the back of your mind that nuts, seeds, and seafoods like oysters, prawns are very, very good sources of zinc. So focus on those if you want to be helpful to your zinc deficiency. Then we also have over-the-counter, zinc supplements that you can actually use. So head down to your pharmacy, talk to your pharmacist, and get to know which are the best zinc supplements you can actually use, so that you are actually replenishing or treating the zinc deficiency as quickly as you can. I hope that helps you, Josie. Let's head on into our last question. This time that is coming in from Spencer is asking if foods can actually affect fertility because she's struggling to conceive. Yes, definitely so. And we discussed that on the Facebook page. But there are some important things we need to note. Now, when we are talking about conceiving, we are talking about bringing forth life, right? We're talking about giving birth, right? And those are natural processes. Those processes involve DNA being composed, involve DNA being made up to give birth to the offspring that you actually have, right? So this is the thing. If you're looking to facilitate natural processes, which is the formation of DNA, which is very, very important, you cannot be eating processed foods, or you cannot be eating foods that are, we shall label them fake, because they're not natural. Yes, if to have, a healthy offspring. Because it's natural processes, you need to feed them those processes, those DNA formations on natural foods as well. That's what they thrive on. That's the fuel they use. Natural can only produce natural. You can't have synthetic or fake or processed producing natural, or at least a good quality of natural. So you need to focus more on eating natural foods. You need to focus more on, avoiding more of processed and man-made foods, but also your lifestyle should also depict one that is going to be promoting of health. So you need to deal with stress, you need to deal with having good sleep, you need to deal with being physically active, because all this is being geared to make sure that you are actually able to have the natural DNA being made, but also giving birth to natural life. So the natural processes, the natural foods, the natural lifestyle is the one that is going to be befitting for you to be able to have healthy offspring and also deal with infertility issues. So I hope that helps you, Spencer. Let's head on now into our third segment. Our third segment today is the take of the week. The take of the week today goes to someone called Nantongo Flosh Happy. Congratulations! She said she was actually responding to a question that was posed on the Facebook page, asking, are there foods that you actually, associate or attach to bad memories, bad childhood memories, that it has affected you even in your adulthood to actually eat? And Nantongo Flosh Happy says, yes, sweet potatoes and G-nuts, because it was her breakfast, lunch, and supper. She's telling me, don't joke with life, Amanda. Yeah, so I thought this was important for us to bring out because, our way of doing things, especially in the African setting, has been, if the child is not eating, force them to eat. But you have seen that it has actually brought on very, very bad effects now for Nantongo Flosh Happy. She's actually not eating those sweet potatoes and G-nuts anymore. And yet sweet potatoes and G-nuts are actually very, very healthy for us. So let's also be tactful with how we feed our children, with how we teach them about food, because it's those things, it's those lessons or those experiences that they take into their adult life, and that's how they will, keep on with their eating lifestyle. Yes, so that was the take of the week. Let's head on to our final segment today. Our final segment is the wellness quote. I know most of you like this bit. Today the wellness quote says, to ensure good health, eat lightly. So no big portions of food, right? Breathe deeply. Live moderately. Cultivate cheerfulness. And maintain an interest in life. This quote is coming in from William Londen. I'll repeat it. He says, to ensure good health, eat lightly, breathe deeply, live moderately, cultivate cheerfulness, and maintain interest in life. So all those childhood dreams, all those things that you felt you were supposed to, you felt you wanted to get yourself involved in, if it is a sport, please do give it some time as well, because those are the things that keep your personality, or you as an individual, interested in life. And it's very, very important that you keep that attitude. Then also you need to be able to cultivate cheerfulness. Cultivating cheerfulness means stay away from negative energy, you know, keep the things that are promoting of you being far away from stress, because stress is very, very detrimental to our health. Eat lightly. You have seen, it's other people saying it, it's not just me, you know. So those mountain hills of food that we usually do, please, let's, you know, take a break from them. Actually, let's give them an indefinite leave and learn to start eating small meals, more frequently, yes, but small meals. And then, you know, live moderately. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. Yes, we want to achieve, which is great, but also know when to have a limit onto the pressure you're putting on yourself. All right, so now that we are done with the show, I know some of you still want to, actually I know all of you still want to get in touch, and I'm very happy because I would also want to keep in touch with you. So here is how you can do that. By getting down to our social media platforms. We're on various social media platforms. The first being YouTube. Please head down there, subscribe to our channel. The channel is Amanda Twebaze-Nutritionist. Then get down to our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is Amanda Twebaze-Nutritionist. That's the name of the Facebook page. We are also on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is Food Witness. We have a food blog with short captivating stories on food and experiences, just so we are learning. And the food blog address is amandatwebaze.blogspot.com. My email, if you would like to get in touch with me for professional services, is amanda.chichoncho@gmail.com. amanda.chichoncho@gmail.com. We are also on WhatsApp, so you can send your inquiries there and your feedback. The number is 0782 152610. Let me say that again, 0782 152610. Well, now that you are going to still connect with us, even on our social media platforms, see you there. Until next week, when we continue to break the silence on food matters. It's a lovely, lovely week from me. Cheers, bye.